Hello everybody, it's Larry and welcome to today's video, and we're going to talk about a feature that is not necessarily new to Family Tree Maker 2019, but with my DNA surprise, it's one that I've actually made use of in order to help me determine which pieces of information I was looking at was most likely to be right and where I wanted to spend my time and effort researching in order to get the maximum results. So what we're going to talk about today is the places, and we're going to map the ancestors. So I'm going to go and I'm going to start with my father, which is Larkin Daniel Brown. I'm going to click on places. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't bring his name across. I was doing some practice stuff, and here's his father. So I'm going to have to go down to Larkin, and he's very bottom of this list. Yeah, it pulls him up. Now, this does have an error, and it seems to be kind of consistent. If the second to the last one is checked, sometimes there's an error. Now, not always, but sometimes. This Edmond, Oklahoma, you hover over this pin that says Edmond, Oklahoma, it's in the center of Iowa. So that's really not Edmond, Oklahoma. If you take that one off and go to the other one where it's Edmond, you really get something that's more accurate, which shows, he was born in Antlers, and he did some things and he migrated and he died in Edmond, Oklahoma. So that's his line. And scroll out a little bit so you can just kind of get the picture of it. All right, so there it is. Now we're going to add Clarence Brown. That's his father. And go to Clarence. And we're going to look at Clarence's migration pattern. Now, notice I've already checked the boxes here, but notice this one right here. This is Chickasha, Grady County, Oklahoma is over here, in the English Channel, or, there in the area of Dover there in the UK. But notice right here, the second to last one, if we uncheck that, look at that. Everything seems to work out. Now, the first one says birth in Missouri, and so it just put a pin in the middle of Missouri. So I'm going to uncheck that because I know that he was actually born in Dunklin, which is here. So this gives you the migration pattern for Clarence Brown, okay? Had a brief stint out in California, back to Oklahoma, and so there you go. Now, we're going to go to his father, and we're showing the migration pattern so that we can, look at it and determine at our brick wall which of these we think is correct. So it'll make sense here in a second. Just bear with us, and we'll wrap it all up into one neat detective story. All right, so we're going to click these, and this one, when we check the next last one, it didn't error, so go figure. So it doesn't always do it, but if it comes up with the second to last one already checked, it tends to give you some kind of buggy pin. So now this is the map for Clarence's father, William Alexander. So to recap this, we have William Alexander born here in Mississippi, and that's a Mississippi tag, so it's right in the middle, and it's, I don't have that determined in my tree at all, shame on me. But here you go, he goes Mississippi, comes up to Dunklin, Holcomb County and Dunklin, and then he comes over here to Illinois, and then he back into Oklahoma to here. And then his son moved around in Oklahoma back over here, or started here and then came down and moved around Oklahoma. His son went from here in Oklahoma to here. So the pattern began here, back and forth here, over to here, and in the meantime here. And I don't have the source document showing that the grandson was there, but if we mapped them all together, that's our pattern. So now we're going to go to the next person in our tree. So we're only one more away after this one, and then we get to what we're looking for, the clues. So the father is John W. So we're looking for John W, and there's John W. Now notice here, this one is really telling. So we get our story here. Let's zoom out just a little bit. All right, so we started in South Carolina, and that's where John was born. Came over here through Georgia, over to Mississippi, where his son was born. He and his son moved to Dunklin, Holcomb County, and then his son was born there, moved to Oklahoma, and his son would be my father, was from here in Oklahoma to Edmond. So we've got this migration pattern, and you can actually do the generations. We're not going to do that right now, but you can actually say, show me the 4 generations of mapping. That's actually pretty cool, but because of some of the bugs, it makes it kind of confusing for the purpose of this video. Now, this is where I came to a couple of things. I could choose person A, which 5 or 6 trees had, or person B, which 5 or 6 different people had. And I'm not sure which one it is. So let's look at the first one. So the first one was, I believe, Simon and Simon Lorenzo. Now, Simon Lorenzo, it shows that he was born in Mississippi and went to Dunklin. Okay, well, Simon's definitely family, from Mississippi to Dunklin. But remember, his, his son was born over in South Carolina, migrated to Georgia and to Mississippi. So if his son did that, the father would need to be at some point in South Carolina. So either I don't have it documented, or he's a member of the family, but not necessarily the one that we're looking for. Another one is Samuel. And so we look at Samuel, we'll look what we have. We have a South Carolina moving to Mississippi. So he born in South Carolina, died in Mississippi, was in Tennessee a little bit during the time. And so now we've got a mapping here. So we have this for the father of John W. But this shows the pattern. This is more likely the pattern. We go South Carolina. Doesn't have a document for Georgia where his son, had it. But, we had South Carolina, Georgia, ended up over here in Mississippi. Probably, up to New York for some business, came back. And then the family, the descendants, went from Mississippi to Dunklin. And then from Dunklin, went from Dunklin to Oklahoma. And then my father from Antlers to Edmond. So this fits the pattern of the migration as shown by the previous people in the tree. So it's really important. I think this is a nice tool. By looking at the mapping, I could tell that it wasn't the Simon that a lot of people had in the tree, because if it was, that means that the dad was born in Mississippi and went to Dunklin, but spontaneously went to Georgia to South Carolina, and then to Georgia, and then back to Mississippi, and there's no records of that. Or it could be this other person, Samuel, who has the records in South Carolina, traveling through Georgia, ending up in Mississippi, and the locations where the sons were. So this one's more likely to be the father. So this is where I would spend more of my time, looking at the source documents, looking at those censuses really closely, looking at the land records, looking at the, any obituaries, looking at newspapers, looking at all the different, pieces of information that I could for this person, because I believe this is where I should spend my efforts. And, I think the mapping tool, it can really help if you look at it in that perspective. So I'm going to go back to my father, and we're going to do Larkin again. So we get to Larkin Daniel Brown, and here he is. Now, these are a few things. You can do immediate family, and this will map the immediate family. Now, remember, this Chickasha Grady County stuck us over in there, and it was this next to last one for Clarence. So here we go. We've got, the immediate family from Missouri. Now, I can take off the Missouri because, remember, we know he was born in Dunklin. So this is what the family map looked like for his immediately family. And so for him and his siblings, his parents, that immediate family. Now another thing you can do is the number of ancestral generations. And in theory, this would give you what we had before. Well, look at this. This is going up 4 generations, and I've got all sorts of spaghetti showing, the family tree. So I'm going to bring it down to, say, 2 generations up. So 2 generations up, it shows to Mississippi. Now we're going to go to 3 generations up. We should see something in North Carolina or South Carolina, which we do. But notice now we've got these entry points. We've got this South Carolina branch going. We've actually got a North Carolina branch coming across. So remember, on the ancestor version, then it's getting both the paternal and the maternal side, moving them over. So, and then we've got the one that came down here, Ocho Rios, Jamaica. That's actually mine. That's where I was married, so it has my document that I traveled there, and I did. So that was actually correct. But I didn't live there. It's just a source document that I have that shows it there. But there's the map of the family, and again, I see that South Carolina movement over into Missouri and to Oklahoma. That looks to be what I believe is correct. So There you go. That's the places tool and how you can map your ancestors. You can do the immediate family. You can do ancestor, 1, 2, 3, 4 generations of mapping on this page. But I found that, I went one by one through there and just looked at them that way. And it really kind of helped me get the family history and the story of it so that I could determine which one of these people is most likely to be my ancestor. And we've all looked at those trees on Ancestry, and we look at it and we know that somebody put down something that was wrong, and then somebody copied it, and then somebody copied that, and somebody copied that, and the next thing you know, there's 40 versions, and you're thinking that's 39 confirmations of the original, and it's not, it's just a copy. Well, when you have a couple of them like that, you have tree A and tree B, each one of them's out there 20 times, it's really hard to determine which one it is, especially if neither one of them source their information. Well, with the mapping and the locations, I'm kind of able to look and say, okay, I'll find the sources and I'll find the information. Which one should I look at? And by looking at the map, I can pretty much tell which one it's likely to be. I can't say it's going to be, but I'm pretty sure that's the correct one, at least on what small research that I've done. As far as the names, it all seems to fall into place. Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the video. Again, these are a little more confusing, and what makes it more confusing is the bugginess of it. If the bugs weren't there, I think that this would be a really awesome tool. Now, some of that is self-inflicted, and I can tell you that it's a computer program, and if everything was written correctly, it probably worked correctly. And that, again, goes to us as end users as garbage in, garbage out. So if I'm not being consistent in my naming, this information I pulled in, marriage, USA, really? Somewhere inside the USA? It was in 1822. Was it really inside the USA? Because when did Tennessee become a state? Okay, so let's be consistent with the naming. If you're going to put counties, always put the counties. If you're not going to put the counties, don't put the counties. Do city, state. But if you're going to add the county, add the county. But do it consistently all the way through. One other thing that you can do here in this area is the places. You can find out who all was in one place. So we changed that to place instead of person, and I'm going to put in Boston, and for Boston, Massachusetts, and it's going to pull that up. It's a little bit slow, but we got, where's Boston? Did I spell it right? Yeah, Boston. Why is it not pulling up Boston? Again, a little buggy. It's making a callback to their servers. So we got Boston, Suffolk, and Massachusetts. So we've got Sarah Dennison. But then we have the same location, but we added the entire word of the state. So a computer thinks that's two different things. And now we've got Mary Gibbons and John Kennedy. And then here we go, we added the United States after it. And so now we have Sarah Mayo. Now let's look at Sarah Mayo, 1660 to 1745. That's not in the United States. That was part of the Massachusetts colony at that point. The United States not forming until 40 years afterwards. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I know it's a bit confusing, but if you spend a little time at it, and remember, it's that second one from the bottom that seems to have the glitch. So maybe Family Tree Maker Makia will see this video and have somebody look in particularly that part. If the second one's checked, normally it checks the first one where they're born and the last one where they died. For some reason, it's checking the one prior to the last one. I think I know what it is from a programmer perspective on the way the loops, actually start at 0, so it's ending in the wrong one and checking the wrong one. But hopefully they'll look at that and fix that, and in an update over this next year. But check the next to last one. If it was default checked, uncheck it, check the last one, and you'll get usually a pretty good start and ending location. And try not to just put states. That just puts a push pin in the middle, and it just kind of confuses the map a little bit. All right, well, there you have it. That's part 3 of our little mini series on Family Tree Maker 2019. Again, this feature was in Family Tree Maker 2017, but I didn't use it, and the reason was I really didn't have the walls. I mean, I had been researching stuff for 30 something years, and I was well documented beyond the range of autosomal DNA. But once I got my DNA surprise and I started off with this brand new family, and I couldn't go back more than a few generations. And that's been really frustrating. And, it's been a bit of a bitter pill because I spent literally my entire life researching it, documenting it so that it would be known for generations to come. And, coming up here on the latter part of my days and starting all over again. Thankfully, Ancestry and Family Tree Maker have some wonderful tools in there. And as they, come out with through lines and other things, it really, really helps us as the end user find that information and find it fast. And now with the DNA test and the centimorgans and triangulation laid on top of that, it really becomes a lot easier to figure that out. Still difficulty, but using the mapping tool, it's definitely one more tool that you can use in the toolbox to help you figure out, is it person A, is it person B, or is this just so far off that it can't possibly be. Anyway, there it is. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow.